being live streamed. Awesome. Hi,
Hello.
Hi, Facebook and YouTube people. I know a lot of you don't even watch when these are going on because I've been checking on you, and that's okay. Because, like, look at me. Do you think I do anything that other people expect me? No, I don't. So whatever you do, however you see these is fine. I don't even care if you have your clothes on. Please don't. I have a don't ask, don't tell policy on that. So I'm Linda Marcus Smith, your host of the Comics Spot interviews. This is interview number, I don't know, 1,000. I lost count. I put it out there early, 1,044. 1044 to be exact. And today we have an amazing comedian. I'll introduce him in 1 second, but I want to tell you that if you want to help folks who are watching, not Lance, people who are watching, want to help defray the cost of whatever it is I'm out there doing, whether it's military comedy shows or these interviews help defray the cost. It's Linda-Smith-400 on Venmo. But that is not for Lance to donate. Don't you dare. If anything, I should be paying you. So don't get it twisted. So as you see, I have a handsome man, and I think he might be younger than me by a hair, but I'm not a cougar, so don't worry. He's over in the other square, and let me introduce him by the intro that he sent me. You'll see a lot of his humility in his intro. Because I don't have much for an intro other than I'm new to comedy after a lifetime of being a fan and finally working in a club. I'm 49 and just starting. That's an amazing introduction, and it shows his humility. A lifetime of watching comedy and being a fan of it. Let's introduce our guest by his real name, Lance Rafdal. Did I get that? Did I pronounce it?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Great. What's the worst way somebody said your name? What's the worst?
Rafdal, I've heard of. Rafdale, I hear a lot. Raz, if I'm trying to spell it out for somebody, they'll hear the F as an S, so I get a lot of Razdal.
Little rag doll.
Yeah, ragdoll.
There was a song about that. I think it was the Beach Boys. A little rag doll. Okay, well, I'm so glad that you're here, Mr. Rafdal.
Well, thank you.
I've seen you working at the club down at Don Barnhart's shows.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen you on stage at Don Barnhart's shows, and I've seen you in the audience watching comedy. So I've seen a lot. I've been watching you for a while, and I think you're one heck of a nice, sincere guy.
Well, thank you. Definitely appreciate that.
Yes, I'm so glad that you're stepping out and doing comedy. I know that Ron Coleman and Aaron O'Connor have talked very highly about how you knew everybody's comedy sets and they encouraged you to go on stage just recently.
That's exactly right.
That's so cool.
Yeah, with working at the club, seeing 8 shows a weekend. Within a few weeks, few months, I kind of just had everybody's sets down, and there'd be times where I'd be talking to another comic and I'd actually say the punchline at the exact time that the comedian on stage was saying it. Usually I'm very good at mimicry and impersonation. Yes. So I'd usually have their timing, their the cadence, everything. And the looks on their face, to me, it was just, I've been hearing it so much, I didn't even think twice about it. But the reactions I was getting from them was fun, to say the least. And we used to joke about if anybody gets sick, I could just go up and do their act for them. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Or they call it comedy. We could do comedy karaoke, where we'll say it in the back and you just stand up there and so that it was really fun. And honestly, Aaron was the first one. Aaron O'Connor was the first one that really said, you need to give this a try.
That's so precious.
Yeah, she's such a sweetheart. And of
You're
course,
gonna remember, you'll remember that the rest
oh,
of your comedy career. You
absolutely.
always remember. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how's it been going getting up on stage as now I want to get into you watching and being a fan of comedy
mhm.
in a minute.
Yeah, yeah.
But since you've gotten up on stage in the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 months, is that correct?
Probably two actually. I think I did my first one in mid-May.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
since you've been doing it for a few months now, what's that been like from your point of view? Because you have a fresh, we are jaded. So if you could give us a fresh perspective of making that transition from being a fan to actually doing, what's that been like for you?
It's been exciting. Um, I've always kind of wanted a creative outlet and I wanted to, so now it's like, okay, maybe I found it. But it's been really exciting. Nerve-wracking, especially at first. Um, just going up there. That very first time, I think you were probably at Wise Guys, that very first time I went up there. Um, and I hit 2.5 minutes and I looked over and I was like, okay, I don't have time to get to a new joke. And my brain just went completely went blank anyway at that point. So I'm pulling the plug. Let's get out of here while but it was super exciting, super fun. And it just, even that little 2.5 minutes that I did kind of showed me, okay, I think there's something here. And I was lucky enough to again knowing Don. I did a little guest spot at Bucks the next night, and I made it to 4.5 minutes. So I figured that was pretty good. And then of course that weekend I was at Delirious and I was joking with the comics. I was like, well, I did 2.5 the first night, 4.5 the second night. I figure in a month I'll have an hour, right? I do not have an hour. But I went up as a guest spot all 8 shows that last weekend at Delirious. So getting 10 spots my first week was kind of mind-blowing. and it was really exciting and a little sad because it was our last weekend that Delirious was open at that location. We're still looking for a new one. And so I've joked about how leave it to me to leave it to the very last week that we're open to actually get up there and do this. And now I've got to go out and find stages and stuff. I had one in my pocket. I could have done it.
So it's not your fault they shut it down?
No, it's not. But frustrating to say the least. But yeah, excited for the new home once it happens. So
I'm sad to see that place go too. I used to go and watch it 3 years ago at the D. Sure. Delirious at the D, and then it moved over to the Grand, and I can't wait to see it reopen again.
Yeah, really looking forward to it.
It's always whatever Don Barnhart puts on, it's always constantly supreme comedy. You can know that you're going to go there and get quality comedy that you're going to walk away enjoying.
Yeah, that's one thing I'm realizing even more and more now that I've seen other shows and stuff. And I won't name any names or anything, but was at a show recently, and I went to see a friend of mine, and he was fantastic, but the rest of them I was like, really?
Exactly.
And I never really had that. Anytime Don, everybody he booked, from host, guest spots, features, headliners, if it wasn't him, was fantastic. They were great people, which is important, and always hilarious. So
absolutely. So let's talk about you. And I'm still wanting to get to you being a fan of comedy, but first I want to ask you, what were you like as a little kid in your family, like 4, 5, 6, those formative years? Were you quiet, shy, a lot of siblings, lived in a big house, lived in a small town? Who are you?
I grew up in Ankeny, Iowa. At the time, it was kind of a small town. It's a suburb of Des Moines. It's like since then, it's actually grown a lot. It's, I think last I heard, about 75,000 people there in the Des Moines area. One brother, I'm the oldest of two. I was very much a rule follower as a kid. Didn't want to step out of the line too much. But at the same time, I think I knew from, like I said, 3, 4 or 5 years old, I wanted to be a performer of some sort. And here's where there's going to be two different stories here. I've got, my mom has pictures of me. One, I remember I'm standing on the couch in my underwear, 3 or 4 years old. I'm holding a jump rope like a microphone. And then I've got another one of me, all the pots and pans on the kitchen floor around me, banging on them like with like 2 pencils, like a, and then I make my mom paint my face like Kiss. So whether it was going to be a musician or perform, I just obviously I think it was in there. Okay, you're gonna be a performer at
Yes.
3, 4 years old. Ironically, I never really did much. Like in high school, I wasn't in drama, I wasn't in band or anything like that, which is strange now looking back. But I'm trying to think. It was probably 10, 15 years ago. I finally gave in. And I think I've always wanted to be, I've always wanted, so I started auditioning as a lead singer of a band, you know, for a little while, a little crappy cover band, and you know, in Iowa. Crappy meaning that, you know, obviously it was just 4 guys essentially practicing in, you know, a basement or a side room and playing once a month at little bars, that kind of thing. A lot of fun. I used to tell jokes on stage a lot of times in between songs and stuff. I was going through my first divorce around that time, and I don't remember exactly how it came up, but I was thanking everybody, and I said that, and my ex and I get along great, but at the time I said something about, you know, thank you guys for the opportunity. My ex-wife doesn't know anything about this, so this money is all mine, or something like that. I used to joke about how we get paid to set up and tear down, we play for free, you know, just little things like that, you know. I'd always have, depending on what was going on, I'd always have little quips or something for my little stage banter. So even then, I guess I had that little bug of gotta tell a joke or something. I think, you know, and going back to childhood and stuff, I remember wanting to be a DJ too.
Wow.
And I remember telling my mom, I was like, I want to be a DJ, because I thought, you know, these guys are so cool. They can listen and play music all day, and they're on the radio. And my mom, being a Midwest conservative, she's not conservative like socially, but you know, conservative, you know, and she wants the best for her kids. And I remember her saying distinctly, after I told her I want to be, you can't make any money being a DJ. And I was like, well, I guess I'm not going to be a DJ then. I want to make money, right? And so I think, not specifically that moment, but that was kind of the feel, you know, especially Midwestern. You work hard, you get a good job, you get, you know, you get the benefits and the insurance, and you raise a family, and you know, so that was kind of the vibe at home. That's why I think the performer side of me kind of just went, okay, we'll just put that over here for so long.
Yes.
And then finally, you know, you get to a certain age and you're like, screw it. I've tried it. I've done all that stuff they told me I should be doing. One, I'm not happy. It's, you know, it's in an indirect way costs me marriages and stuff and family, you know. I gotta just do it.
Absolutely.
And the first step was the band, and you know, things didn't work out there. I moved out to Vegas. I again try and stay in that lane of, okay, we're out here, got kids, got to make sure. And of course, we moved out here 2.5 months before the pandemic and everything shut down, so couldn't have picked a worse time. But
Yes.
So that made things a little tough. and just trying to make ends meet and make rent and things like that. But there was always that pull. And, you know, it's one of those things you never have. I've kind of learned never have regrets. There's things where it hurts or it didn't go the way you wanted it to. But, you know, honestly, especially the biggest situations in my life, I've always found that as much as it sucked or hurt at the time, it was for a reason. And they've all put me where I'm at right now.
Exactly. Everything for a reason.
Yep. 100%.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think it's really important, whatever we go through, that we have to be well adjusted to it too.
Yep.
Because something else is coming around the corner tomorrow. What are you going to do? Blow up?
Right. Exactly.
So let's talk about this lifelong quest to be a fan of comedy. Tell me all about that, because I have had that too, and I want to hear your story. I'm sick of mine.
I don't, it's always been something that's been a big part of my life, whether I was watching Newhart and MASH reruns as a kid, just, sitcom, that the idea of watching something that makes me laugh has always been important. Specifically with stand-up, I think I had an old record player, and I think my mom gave me a Bill Cosby album.
Which one did you like the best?
The one I had that I remember the most was Bill Cosby himself. And you've probably heard me say this, and it's 100% true. It's actually my opening joke right now when I start. But again, going back to wanting to be a performer as a kid, the first time I ever performed in front of an audience was a church talent show, and I had memorized most. And again, it goes back to me memorizing and learning other people's cadences, and I went up and I met do you remember the going to the dentist bit?
Mm-hmm.
I memorized that whole thing and performed it for our church. I was like 10 years old. And I had a chair, because I think I'd seen it on TV or something, so I knew all the movements as well. How he kind of sits back in his chair, and I had a chair out there, so I was doing all the, small book was coming out of my, and then from there, I just remember evening at the Improv. Saturday Night Live and evening at the Improv were two big ones for me, especially getting into like 80s, 90s high school era. For me, I hardly ever missed those. And my very first weekend at Delirious, Bob Zaney was headlining, and I couldn't believe it. I remembered watching him on I think it was evening at the Improv or one of those, and I was like, oh my God, Bob Zaney. This is crazy.
This is zany.
So yeah, exactly. So maybe again, it tells you about Don and whatnot, but my very first weekend, I was like, oh wow. I've seen this guy, watch this guy, I don't know how many times, and he's right here with me now. I'm working with this guy. So that was kind of a fun little moment, little welcome to Delirious moment for me.
Yes. Have you been there at Don Barnhart's when George Wallace has dropped in?
I did not get to catch George. I missed that.
That'll be cool when that happens.
That'd be fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love Kathy Ladman, and she came through there a couple times with Mr. Bluestein, and I just adore Kathy Ladman. The dry delivery where everything is dependent on the well-written material.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's one thing, especially since I started Delirious and kind of started picking up more of the knowledge and the kind of the nuts and bolts. Especially since I started writing and getting up myself, I'm really digging into, first of all, the writing, but just watching a ton of stand-up. Like that's 75% of what I do now when I'm not working, and I'm just more and more amazed about how there's literally a style for everybody. There's like
There's
everybody
literally a what?
a style. Like, there's no one way to do it.
No.
Which is so interesting. Like there's no formula.
No. It's so weird too, because you know how the world is so polarized in everything, like left and the right, and Americans and those that aren't Americans. Everybody's fight. Even in comedy, there somebody will say, "Oh, I think that if you read a room, it's stupid to read a room because I'm a professional. I'm not going to change my material for that." And then you got the other people on the other end. They're like, "Oh no, I do the opposite." It's like everybody, everything in the world, everybody's polar opposites about.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it just like I said, they're reading the room. There's people that get up there and just do their thing. And they can be fantastic without even having to worry about it. But then I see somebody like Don, and he doesn't necessarily change the material, but he reads the room and he will present things slightly different. He'll change up his set a little bit to go one direction and take him a different direction, but another crowd, he may start over here and come back this way. It was like a master class, 8 times a week, seeing how he reads the room and how he takes the audience exactly where he wanted them to go. Or if he starts losing them, he'll know which direction to take him. You go, oh, that's not working. We'll have to go back this way. And it was just, it's beyond impressive every time I see him.
Yes. I've watched him, and I think of him and Butch Bradley like as the supernovas of comedy, like they know how to read a room, they know how to do crowd work, weave in and out trap doors, when to exit and how to exit and do it. You don't even know they're doing it.
No. And the only reason I knew is because I've seen him so many times. And then it actually took me several months. I'd be like, oh, why? Why are you starting with this one as opposed to his usual opener? Or, see, and then it took me a few minutes after watching him. I'm like, oh, I see what's going on here.
Yeah.
So again, there's like a masterclass working there.
Yeah.
Not only seeing all the different comedians, but seeing the way he does it, and just seeing audiences and just hearing repetition. And it was probably 3 or 4 months in. Aaron's like, I think you should do this. I'm like, nah, you're crazy, whatever. Really, you think? And then Gore's like, what do you think, baby? and then it was about 8 months in. It's like, yeah, I think I can do this. And I was like, oh shit, now I need to write something.
How has the writing process been going for you? So you were a fan of watching it your whole life, and then now you probably had so much you thought you could use, but you're only using tell me about that.
It's one of those, I don't know that I could write had I not been there every night for basically a year, or every weekend for a year. Because again, I actually heard Seinfeld talk about this, just levels of comedy, making your friends laugh, making other people laugh, that kind of thing. I've always been able to make friends laugh and stuff, but the stuff that's going to make them laugh or make just people you're in conversation with is not going to be the same thing that's going to make a room full of people laugh when you're on stage. I don't know that I could have just sat down and written 5 minutes without being in that environment as long as I was. And honestly, it was right towards the last month or so that we were open, and I was like, I think I want to do this. And it's like, but I got to get something written. And then they did, are you gonna do this? You're gonna do that. They actually even encouraged me to just get up there and do other people's jokes. They're like, we don't care. Just get up and do, some of Ron's stuff, some of David's stuff, some of Aaron's, whatever. I was like, I don't know. We actually fooled around with the idea of me doing that for April Fool's Day. But ended up not. And but yeah, it was just one night. I'm trying to think. It was either during, because we had a magic show at 6, and then we had to stand up at 8 and 10. I think it was during the magic show, because I didn't have any audio cues to run or anything like that. I literally just, something clicked, and I just started writing. And I got done, and I had it in a couple sheets of paper, just scrawled out real quick. And at one point that evening, I told Don, I was like, I think I got 5. He's like, you do? Like, I kind of showed him. He's like, so we'll send it to me. I'll take a look at it. I'm like, oh, okay, awesome. He's like, but email it to me because I don't want to try and read what you got going. I'm like, no, I get it. So I emailed it to him, and again, it's another great resource, for him to be able to say, okay, let's take a look at this. And I was really fortunate in that he tweaked a couple of things, adjusted a couple of wordings, but that was about it. It wasn't like scratch this, do that. It was literally just a few little notes, tweaks, which made me feel pretty good. I was like, okay, that's a good sign. And then from there, once I kind of got the idea of, okay, I think this is how I need to write, or how I'm probably still searching for my voice, but 90% of what I talk about on stage is myself. So that's usually a good place to start.
Yeah.
And so I had it, and I was working it through my head, and he told me, he's like, literally just stand up and talk into a mirror, or just walk around your apartment and talk. And I went through it in my head, went through it in my head. And then the first time I actually tried to say the words, no, just direct, is right behind me. I felt like I was speaking a foreign language.
Wow.
Just because I've been saying them in my head for a week, but then making my mouth actually say the words, it was like learning to speak all over again. It was a really crazy experience. I'm like, I wrote this, I know exactly what I'm supposed to say, but I couldn't get my mouth to say it.
Exactly.
So did that a few times, and then finally felt pretty good about it. Went to Wise Guys, and I was in Wise Guys. We were waiting to get started, and I remember the Cosby story, and I was like, I got to use that. And I literally went on stage that night and opened with it. And I've sent some stuff. When I write, I usually will write it out kind of long form. And then I've got a few people that, like Erin's a great resource. I send her a lot of stuff. And I just, from there, it's a matter of how I'm going to use it, where I'm going to use it. My girlfriend's fantastic. She's hilarious.
Really?
And just in our conversations, I've realized I got to have a notebook with me whenever we're hanging out, because she'll say something like, oh, I gotta write that down. That's going in somewhere at some point.
That's so cool.
So I definitely figured out there's going to be these moments of, okay, that's going to be something at some point. I got to write it down. Other times I just sit down and I'll have an idea. I kind of long form it. And then from there I go back and I tweak it, or I'll send it to Erin or somebody and have them take a look at it. Sometimes, like I said, sometimes it's just, I got to use that now.
Yeah.
Which is, and I'm already, as short as time as I am into this, I love writing. I think I got something, and getting on stage with it as soon as I can.
That's so cool. I'm so glad you're in the comedy business, and I'm glad that I've gotten to see you and get to know you. And I think you're a great addition to it.
Well, thank you.
So yeah, and you're coming out of the gate swinging. I mean,
trying.
It's fabulous for you, and it's fabulous for the comedy world. So, where do you want your comedy to take you in your life?
That's a good question.
Because you could DJ, you could be a band, get in another cover band, and do comedy and all of it, and travel. Or, I mean, there's so many ways you can use comedy. You could go into motivational speaking. You could do private parties. You can do so many things nowadays.
That's a great question. I'm not even sure, to be honest. I'm so new to doing it. I'm not even sure where just the fact that I'm doing it feels like such a success that I haven't really thought past. Okay, right now, I think I have about 15 minutes right around there. I'm like, I want to get to 2030. It's for me, it's those little incremental goals. I haven't even considered, am I going to go? Am I going to start touring? Am I going to start, because I need to take those baby steps to get to a certain point, and then I feel like at that point I'll have the decision to make. But I think, knowing me, if I get if I get those steps done and I get to a certain point, I think I'm probably gonna want to just hit the road, and once I get to that point, and just get on stage as much as possible. And like from there, whether that means road comic, whether that means, who knows? I mean, I haven't even thought that far ahead of that.
Yeah. My big goal is to do an armed forces tour, and I got invited into 2 of them, but they didn't happen yet.
Yeah.
So
They're
that's
coming. They're coming though, right?
they're coming, because I'm not giving up.
Good, good.
I don't care how old I am. I don't care if they have to wheel me out.
There you go.
Yeah. So you've covered how you got in, why you got into it, and how you got into it, and how it's been going. What kind of things do you think, being brand new and fresh to the comedy, what kind of things, let's say somebody's out there and they want your fresh perspective, whether or not they should get into comedy and what way they should get into it. Tell us, like, your insight would be really valuable, even though you might not think so. Give some tips to somebody out there that's thinking, should I or shouldn't I?
What, should you or shouldn't you? I always say you should, or at least try it. You may not be good at it. You may not even like it once you try it, but you're never going to know until you try it. One thing, Adam Carolla, I used to listen to his podcast a lot. He did the Dancing with the Stars, and he kind of gets some shit about it now and then. But one thing he said that I think it'll probably always stick with me is like, you always got to try. He's like, always do something that scares you a little. So like, if you're not a little scared, you're not growing. He's like, you may hate it, you may take me terrible, whatever it is, but if you're always playing it safe, you're never going to grow as a person. So I definitely take that to heart. I think that's 100% true. If you're wondering if you should or shouldn't, try it. Get out there.
I love your advice. That's encouraging to me, just to hear, to be reminded that if you're not a little bit afraid, you're not growing.
Yeah. So work up, write some jokes where they may be terrible. You may get lucky and there's a good one or two, or maybe they're all great, but find everybody has open mics somewhere. Go to an open mic, get up there, try them out. If you're excited, and even if it doesn't go well, if you're excited, the adrenaline's flowing and you're smiling when you leave stage, that's usually a good sign.
Yeah.
So from there, it's about working on the writing.
I can always tell if I've had a good set by the number of people that avoid eye contact.
Yes, absolutely. It was that last weekend in Delirious. It was one of my last, this is probably Saturday or Sunday, late show. And I felt like I did just terrible. I walk off stage, but I was still excited. I'm like, I'm still doing it. This is great. And I walk back in the green room. Moran goes, "So you bomb yet?" And I go, "Well, I kind of felt like that." He's like, "Oh, that's not bombing." So, you'll know when you bomb.
You're good at those impressions. That sounded just like him. Do something Aaron would say.
Oh man, I gotta think.
Bruno Mars.
Oh yeah, there you go. That's perfect. So I'd like to explore life on Mars. Bruno Mars.
That joke gets me every time.
Every time. Yeah. I'm so conscious of everything. Like, I want everything to, even when I wasn't doing stand-up, I was back there running lights, music, all that kind of stuff. It didn't take but a couple of weeks to where I knew everybody's sets enough that I was trying to play songs that referred back to their set, or just kind of describe them as an individual or whatever. So it didn't take long. I started bringing Aaron up to Electric Light Orchestra, ELO, or I played Bruno Mars as she's coming off, things like that. Ron Coleman, I usually play Crazy Train when he goes up. It felt like that was a great Ron Coleman song, kind of that rock and roll energy. He's gonna go up there and he's not tiptoeing into a set. He's coming out there and so
Yes.
so I'm not going to play something light and fluffy to get him up there. I want somebody to, I want it to feel like, okay, here it comes, get ready. So all those little things were something I was always thinking about, even like I said, just doing lights and music. So.
Wow, that's cool to hear. I Ron Coleman is so matter of fact. I just love hanging out with him at a club. He's just, you've got the best comics around you.
Mm-hmm.
Just stellar.
That first night I walked into Wise Guys, he was there. He turns like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" I was like, "Oh, you're gonna do it?" And that was good. And then we just kind of stood there. We got done. Good job.
His comedy always slays. I just think it's fabulous.
Yeah. And actually the first time, like I said, I've been hearing, give this a try, give that a try. I think you should do it. Sitting around talking. I actually suggested a tag for one of his jokes and he used it and it worked. I was like, that was like the best. That was a better feeling than the first time I came out stage. Just hearing something I suggested, I wrote it, so to speak. I'm like, try this, and it worked.
So isn't that the best? It's the best.
Yeah.
I was at Stand Up and Rock, and Byron Kennedy was talking about this whole long bit he had, and I was sitting there going, I wonder if he'd be offended if I told him how to wrap that up, at the end with a tag. And so I wrote him, like, it took me 2 days. I had to ask other people. I wrote him, I said, people say you're not going to be offended. Mm-hmm. So here's an idea. So he used it and he said, it kills every time.
Yeah.
And it does.
It's such a great feeling.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So great. So great. Yeah. But it doesn't always work sometimes.
Doesn't always work.
Yeah. Some people don't like it. I found that out.
I'm sure.
Yeah, ego schmigo.
Yeah, well, and that's another, again, and I'm sure that's true, but again, with Don and the family, I that felt like home. Like it felt like a family. Like those are still some of my best friends in town, or right, in general right now. And there was not really any ego when it comes to that kind of stuff. We'd be sitting around talking, and Don would have a tag for somebody, or even the light and sound guy. Hey, try this. Everybody was always talking and helping, and it was, very, very. It's a wonderful atmosphere.
Oh, that's great to hear. I can't wait for it to reopen wherever that's going to be.
Cross my fingers.
Yes, absolutely. There's so much going on in town, but I like going to the same places, like I find a place that I feel is up my alley. I don't want to go explore 30,000 places in town. Just and so that's one of my go-tos, and that's where I send people who are visiting. So
very good.
Yeah. Well, what would you like to say in closing about comedy, embarking on your comedy career? Anything? What would you like to say in closing, or where to follow you, where you're going to perform? Also,
good question. Follow me. I guess you can follow me if you want. It's just Lance Rafdal on Facebook, L Rafdal on Instagram. I've got a TikTok, but I'm never on it, so I'm not going to bother for now. At some point, maybe I'll start throwing some stuff up there. I finally got a tripod so I can start recording some sets. So maybe I'll start putting some stuff on TikTok. If I do, I'll let you know. You can put it out.
Okay.
What would I like to say? Honestly, I'm just excited to be starting this journey. Very thankful for you for having me on. I don't have anything set other than August 16th. I'll be hosting at Bucks.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm excited. excited about that. I'm actually working at Bucks too. I started bartending there, so.
Wow, great.
So,
That's fabulous.
the plan is, I think, for me to be there every Wednesday for comedy, even if I'm not hosting. So if I'm not hosting up front, I'll be behind the bar for the most part here coming up in hopefully a few weeks.
Fabulous.
So.
Well, since you're new at comedy and I like you on and off stage, I'd like to extend an offer that every 3 months you come back and give us a comedy journey update.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be happy to.
I would love to hear how it progresses and what steps you've taken. I think it'd be interesting for other people to see how hard you're working at it and what you're doing and how it's going.
I'd be happy to do that. I need to work a little harder. Like I said, I don't have a car, and here in Vegas, that's almost more difficult than being homeless, I think, sometimes.
Totally. I don't have a car either.
I have the home, I don't have the wheel. So it's 109 a day. I'd rather have the home, but there's times where
Yes.
but it makes it a little difficult to get out. So I need to just make sure and then I'm working 2 jobs now too. So I need to make sure and get out there and hit some stages. But I'm gonna keep working. I'm gonna keep writing. I've already got several new joke ideas that I'm gonna try and work in. Hopefully I'll have some of those written by Buck's time. So
August 19th at Buck's Tavern.
16th.
August 16th.
Yep,
Thank you.
16th. Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, break a leg
I
August
appreciate
16th at Buck's Tavern, and
Got it.
please come back every 3 months, and I'll put it in my calendar to hit you up.
Definitely. Please do.
Thank you.